Hey, Lucas from Tubman here. This video was created to help educate those who may not know what Juneteenth is all about, or for those who want to learn a little bit more about Juneteenth, and more importantly, why it was such a historic and vital moment in U.S. history. To start off, I am going to quickly read an excerpt from a book, Juneteenth for Mazie, written and illustrated by Floyd Cooper. My hope is that while I am reading and showing you the elaborate illustrations, you get a chance to paint a picture in your own head of what celebrating Juneteenth is like for a child, if you haven't already. After I finish reading, I will give you a brief yet historic account of why Juneteenth came to be. And now, here is Juneteenth for Mazie, written and illustrated by Floyd Cooper. And before they finally went to sleep at night, they prayed about freedom and made plans for change and a bright future. Some slaves ran north to freedom, following a bright star in the sky. They sweat, they bled, they cried, till those cries were quieted by a single proclamation from a brave president. Grandpa Mose heard that proclamation, read from the balcony of a hotel on that warm June day in Galveston, Texas. Grandpa Mose heard nothing but cheers, saw nothing but happiness, and felt nothing but pride shared by all those around him. The cheers became dancing. The dancing became celebrating. It went on and on into the night. Grandpa Mose and the others had found freedom. They continued to work, but this time they were paid for their hard work. So they worked, and they saved, and they never forgot the moment they heard, the moment that changed their lives forever. But things weren't perfect. Black people still struggled to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people. They still weren't treated as equals. It wasn't easy, but they never gave up. And every year on Juneteenth, they remembered. They marched for jobs, they lobbied for schools and the right to vote. They shouted for opportunity. And every year on Juneteenth, they celebrated and remembered. They learned and they grew. They forgave. They excelled and achieved. They became heroes. Now, sweet Mazie, it's your turn to celebrate. Just like great-great-great-grandpa Mose. On June 19th, 1865, Civil War Union General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, accompanied by thousands of Union soldiers, and announced enslaved people were now free. Since then, June 19th has been celebrated as Juneteenth across the nation. Here's what you should know about that historic event and celebration. If you know anything about U.S. history, you're probably saying to yourself, wait, hold up. Weren't slaves free after then President Abraham Lincoln delivered the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863? In which the proclamation declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are, and henceforward, shall be free. Inopportunely, in the 1860s, they didn't have the technology and instant communication that we have today. Therefore, it not only took more than 2.5 years and thousands of soldiers to make the trek from the northern states to Texas, where over 250,000 enslaved people were residing, to finally be informed of the message that they were truly free. It also took General Gordon Granger and what Union troops he had to spare to support the now freed blacks to experience their freedom from bondages, persecutions, and manual labor. You see, a lot of the slave owners weren't too keen on letting their slaves be freed, especially before the harvest was over. Consequently, they needed the support of the Union soldiers to continue fighting for their freedoms, even after a piece of paper declared that they were officially freed. Unfortunately, in 2020, nearly 155 years later, systemic racism and oppression of marginalized groups is still happening, not only in the US, but all over the world. Those groups and their allies are still continuing to fight this battle for the Black communities and others who are still not treated equally as humans should be treated. So I hope you join Tubman and me in celebrating tomorrow, June 19th, Juneteenth, a celebration of freedom. And so, as you celebrate, remember that in Texas in 1865, over 250,000 enslaved Blacks and African descendants were finally notified that they were already free. Sadly, they were just not made aware of it until more than 2.5 years later. I not only encourage you to observe and celebrate this historic day, but also continue to educate yourselves and others in order to combat all forms of racism and oppression and promote communities and lives full of equity, inclusion, and equality for all, especially for the Black community's continued struggles. At the bottom, we have added a few different links to websites that offer more information on Juneteenth, as well as virtual Juneteenth celebrations you all can be part of, given the pandemic is still upon us. Keep in mind, these dates are for this year and obviously will be done after this weekend. Hopefully next year, we will be able to have more opportunities to celebrate with families and friends in person. Lastly, if you enjoyed that excerpt I read from the book Juneteenth for Mazie, written and illustrated by Floyd Cooper, I would encourage you to get a copy for yourself or for someone else. As always, we would love to hear from you all, teens@tubman.org, or feel free to leave comments below. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy your Juneteenth safely.